You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cricket Podcast. We're somehow in the middle of the English summer, in the middle of the cricket season. We've got barely any cricket to talk about. I'm Jack Hope. I'm joined by Ross Legg. How are you doing, Ross? Are you excited about our fairly sparse-looking agenda today?
Yeah, they're normally the best shows, aren't they? Because we're masters of the mic. We're the Vibes podcast, and we do pretty good improvisation. Dare I say it? So yeah, I'm excited.
Maybe we should just do an hour of cricket-based sketches instead of talking about any of the
Ross
news.
has wanted to do that for years.
Yeah. Maybe this is our chance. Ross, what would you do a sketch about right now off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head, I would bring to life my character called Tim Hughes, but he's Australian, so it always sounds like he's providing team news, and I think that's a good starting place.
Okay,
Tim Hughes with Tim Hughes.
You can kind of see why Max and myself haven't taken that idea forward with you, Ross. Max, how are you doing?
Yeah, very good. It's odd, isn't it? Yeah, middle of August, and I guess the 100, right? That's the world's premier cricket competition. So, I mean, you can't say there's nothing to talk about. This is the only thing anyone's got their eyes on at the moment. The Olympics is done. Premier League doesn't start till Friday. This is the window. 3 days.
This is
of only the 100. What more could you want?
This is it. Yeah. Everyone's played 7 games in the men's side halfway through. Well, a couple of teams have played their 8 games in the women's comp. So we've got that to talk about. We've also got Ben Stokes with a pretty devastating hamstring injury. That will rule him out Sri Lanka. We've got Pollard with 5 sixes. West Indies played South Africa and it rained a lot. Shakib Al Hasan refused to play and got his team a loss as a result. And James Anderson is going to be the next best opening bowler on the franchise circuit. Where do you want to start, Max? Should we start with Stokes? Limping off the field?
Yeah.
Playing for the Northern Superchargers, batting, running between the wickets, pulls up lame, in agony, like clearly in agony. He's helped off the field by a couple of coaches. It's, I don't know how Mike Atherton did this, but on air, he immediately diagnoses a hamstring injury. Other people on Twitter were like, oh, that's his left knee gone. That's the one that he just had surgery on. This is really, really bad. Atherton on air was like, that's a hammy. Nailed it in one. It's obviously a pretty bad one. He's going to be out for a while. The test series starts in a week. That lasts about a month. So at least a month and a half and potentially even Pakistan. Max, what's your initial reaction to the big news?
Well, my initial reaction was that it's great news for Sam Curran. He's going to be back in the England fold, doing his thing, making things happen. But turns out that's not the case because England have said they're not going to be calling anyone up to replace Ben Stokes in the squad. So it's going to be quite interesting to see, A, what England do with their lineup, and B, Ollie Pope captaining for the second time in his first-class career, but in an England shirt. So there's quite a lot of interesting fallout from it, I suppose. I mean, obviously, it's absolutely devastating for Ben Stokes coming back from his knee injury. He was looking fit. He was bowling well in that West Indies series. He was just, getting back into the swing of things in the 100. And then for that to happen, it's, it must be absolutely galling for him. But I suppose the upside is that it isn't his knee, isn't it? That's the one saving grace, that it's not the same thing again. So maybe it's just a freak thing that happens, and hopefully he can get it mended and he'll be fine. But step aside Dr. Ganguly, Jack. It's Dr. Atherton.
Dr. Atherton. I can see that more in a way. I think Ganguly's too intense to be a doctor.
Atherton could be a GP.
There's no bedside manner with Ganguly. He's just telling you how it is. And
it could be like a war medic, couldn't he? Like he's the kind of guy that you need to lock that off. Go on, let's get that foot off. Let's get the sore out. Yeah. Don't
waste your time on him. Don't worry, he's done for.
No, give me the morphine. He's fine.
Ross, how are England going to solve the problem? No Stokes, no changes. Well, who's batting where? Why are they batting there?
Well, it's the rhyming
selection policy, isn't it? If you can't go Stokes, you go to Wokes. And I think Wokes is going to have to be promoted a little bit up the order. So I can just see a slight shift. So I can see Jamie Smith going to 6, where Stokes bats. I can see Wokes moving from 8 to 7 and taking on that all-rounder role. And he averaged 40 odd, I think, in the last Test series, and is Chris Wokes, who's a legend. And then England pick Bashir and 3 seamers is probably what they're going to end up doing. If they want a slightly different approach, they could bring in Jordan Cox as a replacement for him, and then hope that Dan Lawrence, who is opening the batting because Zach Crawley's got a broken finger, could pick up some of the overs and share that with Joe Root. Probably the selection that they will go down in this one.
So you reckon the 3 off spinner plan is the way forward?
Well, Sri Lanka don't really play against much spin in their own conditions, let alone in this country. So it's a well-trodden path that you bowl 3 right-hand off spinners to people who are not very good against spin, clearly. But I personally think they'll go with option 1. I think Jamie Smith has done demonstrate that he can bat up the order. So I can see that happening.
So what's that make the batting order? Dan Lawrence and Duckett.
Yep.
And then
Ollie Pope at 3.
Root,
yeah.
Brooke.
Smith.
Wokes.
Bowlers.
I will say this. I think Wokes could bat at number 7 in England, and I think he could definitely bat at number 7 in England against Sri Lanka. Without too much, a little bit of disrespect to Sri Lanka there, but not loads of disrespect. If Wokes was your number 7 against India or Australia, I think that would be bad. But I don't think it's that bad.
It kind of feels to me as if you're playing like Brian Lara cricket a little bit, and you're kind of just picking the players that you like, and you're not too worried about the team composition.
We'll sort that out later.
Like Dan Lawrence opening the batting. We talked about it in the last podcast. It's a wild suggestion that he's doing that, and yet England just like, yeah, he'll be fine. So a key cornerstone of this England team has been Duckett and Crawley together. Now that's going to be different, and they're going to go, do you know what? We've got Stokes out. We're not going to replace him. We're going to see what happens.
Fair enough. Max, what do you think about Ollie Pope as captain?
Well, I've never seen it before. Well, actually, he did it in the Blast a little bit when Chris Jordan was away for Surrey. But aside from that, never seen him do it. But I actually don't. I don't really mind that, because how do teams end up with their captain? Well, like the historical, general, natural way that captains emerge seems to be pick your best batter, you're the captain, because you can't have a bowler as a captain because they've got too much to think about. You got to have a batter so that he can just see what happens in front of him, etc. And they're obviously like trying to groom him for some sort of leadership role, because they picked him early on for a guy who maybe didn't even have his place nailed down in the side, having a bit of a, I suppose he had a rocky patch in a bit at number 3 and early on, and I think he's doing fairly well overall now. I think averaging 45 basically at number 3. So he's had a bit of a resurgence and probably a bit more solid now. But they've clearly got a plan for Ollie Pope as some sort of like succession. He'll obviously have been trying to learn from Stokes and watch what England want to do and the way they want to approach things. So I actually think I'm quite looking forward to seeing how it goes, because you don't often see teams actually have a plan for like who they want the next captain to be and think about what skills and what ideas you need to be a captain. It's normally just who's the next big name. You can do it, like Kevin Peterson being captain. Like, it's a disaster. So, yeah, looking forward to it, and I think it's fine. It's good. They've got a plan for who should step up, and he was always going to get an opportunity to do it at some point. There'd be a resting period or an injury, and it's come along. It's been about a year that he's been understudy, isn't it? So it's probably a good time for him to test his mettle, cut his teeth, and see how it goes.
I've got a question, Max.
Yeah.
Who's going to field at short leg? If you're captain,
you can't have your captain at short leg, can you?
England might.
And Lawrence.
They normally give it to the new guy, don't they? They give it to the newest guy.
He's not the shortest guy.
Ben Duckett.
Ben Duckett would.
Yeah, shortest guy. And also,
it's literally called short leg, so they have to be short.
That's true. Wicket
Uh,
tend to do a
yeah.
half decent job there as well. Ben Duckett keeps wicket. Ben Duckett.
You
could
don't want
do
to
it.
put Jamie Smith as there, do you?
No,
That'd be ridiculous.
He's keeping wicket. He's busy.
Yeah. I don't think the captaincy matters. It's not. I know that proper cricket men won't like to hear that, but everyone knows what they're going to do. I think once you've roughly decided on your game plan, then it should be fine. Unless you're terrible. I mean, I think you can be terrible at it. I don't know to what extent you can actually be really good. I mean, Peterson was objectively terrible at it because everyone hated him. And like, I don't think everyone hates Ollie Pope, so I'm sure he'll do like a reasonable job. You can kind of fall in the middle a little bit, like Joe Root, where it went a bit listless at times. But he had Dom Sibley and Rory Burns opening the batting, and they swapped one of them out for Hamid, and that didn't make any sense. Like, there was nothing you can do with that. If your game plan is Rory Burns and Dom Sibley, you're just going to lose loads of matches, aren't you? Like, it's not.
But
captaincy.
It is going to be difficult, I think, for Ollie Pope. Like, there's not much experience from a Test match perspective in that lineup right now. So you have Gus Atkinson's going to be playing. It's going to only be his second Test series. Dan Lawrence hasn't played loads for England. What it might be getting into his 10th appearance in an England shirt, maybe in Test match cricket. Dan Lawrence.
Play over under. What do you reckon? Over or under 10 appearances, Ross?
I reckon under. I reckon
I'm
he's
going
played,
over.
I reckon 8 he's played.
11.
Oh.
11.
Well, okay, still inexperienced.
You're out
1-0 in the quiz. Can I have that added to the quiz at the end of the year?
Yeah. Sure, why not? Anything else on any of this?
What are Northern Superchargers doing? That's the second hamstring injury of the season. They've taken out Pennington, so that's a one down. So maybe there's a Sri Lankan spy in the midst. Trying to take us down from the inside.
The Chelsea physio department on board.
Who's Flintoff in charge there, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
I don't know if I'd see Flintoff as spy material. Maybe they need to look at the coaching staff around Flintoff.
Well, maybe that's part of why he's so good at it, Jack.
It's a great point, actually, Max. You've got me there. You have got me there.
I'm actually like a little bit surprised that England haven't decided to call anyone up, because I think
you just want Sam Curran to be back in the England team.
Why doesn't have to be Sam Curran?
Give us another option then, Max. Give us another option. If you say Tom Curran, you're going to get kicked off this podcast.
Jordan Clark. Yeah, no, I don't know.
Anyone who doesn't play for
Surrey? Surrey player. The point is, right, what England have been doing in supposedly with like their team selection is thinking ahead to the Ashes and whatever. And if Ben Stokes is injured, you're going to need another all-rounder to come in, or you're going to need to rebalance that side. You can't go to, like you said, you can't go to Australia and have Chris Woakes batting at 7, and you can't go to Australia and have 3 bowlers and have Jordan Cox at 7 or 6 and with Jamie Smith. So I feel like they've maybe missed an opportunity to think about what they would do in that scenario in a fairly low-stakes situation.
Yeah, I think they should have picked an opening batsman and just put Dan Lawrence back to replace Stokes. That's what I would have probably done. I would have been like Alex Lees, Keaton Jennings, one of those should just be like, come and open the batting.
Then you still only have 4 bowlers.
Yeah, but it's Sri Lanka. Like, genuinely, it's going to be fine. Like,
if they were playing Australia in Australia, what would they do?
They'd panic and pick one of the Overtons, wouldn't they?
Yeah, Jamie Overton.
They would. It would be Jamie Overton, 100%.
Yeah,
he's not available though, really, is he? He's still got a bad back, so
yeah,
I think he's been played some 100, but they're not going to throw him into a Test series. So yeah, it doesn't even matter anyway. England are going to lose 4 or 5-0 in Australia because that's what always happens, and then there'll be a performance review, and Stokes will retire, and that'll be it. Like, cricket's not that complicated when you break it down. Captaincy doesn't matter. England lose in Australia. Ben Stokes is getting quite old. He's going to get injured a lot. We've actually said this about, just to round off on this. We said this about, was it India? We were like, or Australia? We were like, these players are quite old now. They're past their physical peaks. They're still good players, but they're all going to be injured a lot. Rohit Sharma is injured a lot. Jadeja is injured a lot. Ben Stokes, from an England point of view, exactly the same. Like, there's a completely unreasonable expectation, if you're an England fan, to think that Ben Stokes is going to play all your games. You're lucky if he plays 75% of matches from now until the end of his career, I would say. Like, he's done too much cricket. And he's in his 30s. That's just what happens. As we all know. All know. Yeah. There's another England story. We didn't really talk about this on the last pod. Matthew Mott was, well, I was going to say sacked. He resigned the England white ball coaching role. Does anyone have a comment on that?
How
In what era?
magnanimous! How magnanimous! Like what a classy bloke resigning. That's a nice touch, isn't it? Clearly
Well, look,
wasn't forced in that space.
His legacy, if you're being generous, is mixed. He won the T20 World Cup. Pretty humiliating performance by England in India in the ODI World Cup, defending their crown. And the last World Cup was so weird and such a crap tournament that I don't know if a semi-final is good or not there, but it wasn't amazing.
Well,
I
think the issue for England is their failure to beat any of the big teams, really, wasn't it?
Yeah. They caught pre-Gareth Southgate England footballitis, didn't they? They immediately lost to anyone competent. Apart from West Indies, who they did actually beat, and the West Indies were quite good. Matthew Mott, Ross, good or bad?
I think bad overall. So I think winning the upfront competition was obviously a good thing to do, but then they didn't take the opportunity to refresh the white ball side. And I think there's plenty of talent within English white ball cricket. There's kind of a mainstay across the world in kind of franchise cricket, and yet England were turning up with all of the old guard, really. There wasn't a lot of fresh blood coming in, wasn't a lot of fresh thinking coming in, and it didn't really feel like we were making the right decisions. The amount of times that Joss Buttler probably had too many things going on is what the press are now saying. Have got Mott in his ear, he's got the data team in his ear, he's got the players in his ear, and there was a lack of clarity around the direction and the decision making. And you saw on a couple of occasions when they should have batted first or bowled first, they made the wrong choice, and it ultimately cost England in the big games. So there has to be an element of accountability, and it's easier to sack the coach than it is to get rid of all the players. But on this occasion, I think they probably get rid of some of the players because there's retirements happening anyway. But the next coach will be an interesting decision, I think.
Max, who would you anoint or appoint? It's kind of a both, isn't it? Anointment.
Well, they obviously want Owen Morgan, don't they? But he didn't fancy it. So
I was going to so much kids, sod off. Kind of
no thanks. I actually don't know. I think it's tough. I think your best bet is probably looking towards I think a successful franchise or county.
Andy Flower coming back.
County coach. Andy Flower coming back wouldn't be the worst option. I think that's the area to look at, because it's getting more and more like that, isn't it? You need a specialist. I think Matthew Mott coming from the Australian women's side, I just don't think the skills that you need to completely dominate there were necessarily that well suited to the England side that was in a bit of transition. So probably, you want to be looking at someone who can build a side a bit more. So that's the route I might go down.
Okay, I'm going to float some names here. I've done extensive research. I've looked on William Hill to see who the players, the runners are in this race. Flintoff, 6-5.
That'd be a bad
nearly
decision.
odds on.
Not terrible.
That'd be a bad decision.
Okay.
You can't have two vibes coaches. You want Brendan McCullum. You can't then have on the white side another guy who's literally just like happy-go-lucky. He needs a little bit more experience. I'm not saying it can't happen in the future, but I mean, Freddie's Field of Dreams, where he's coaching the kids from Bradford.
That's on tonight.
It's a little bit different to coaching the England team,
and they're from Preston.
So
you don't even know you don't even know his basic credentials, Ross.
Bolton, Preston, it's all the same stuff. It's literally within 20 minutes of each other.
Okay. Next on the list, Mike Hussey. Max, you can decide on Mike Hussey. 3-1.
Oh, Mr. Cricket.
Mr. Cricket.
That'd be a shambles. If they appoint a fucking Aussie, no.
Okay.
Just because he's an Aussie.
Yeah, but just completely because he's an Aussie, Max. You can't be putting an Australian in charge of the England team. You just can't do it.
Has that ever gone well?
Australian.
Has that ever gone well, Ross? An Aussie?
Shouldn't do it. Shouldn't do it.
charge? No?
Can't go back. Can't go back.
Win anything?
No,
with an Aussie in charge?
look, Max, if you've not learned anything from the recent kind of things that are happening in England, you have to go British made. That is clearly what the whole thing has been saying, right? And when it comes to the mighty Australians, they win everything. We need a perennial loser in charge. So my bet would be. I'm trying to think of a perennial loser now.
Okay, well, you've got two options. You've got two English options on the list. Simon Katic, you're ruling him out, I guess. James Foster and Jonathan Trott.
So do you know what? They're not losers, though, are they? I was trying to think from an England perspective. You know, so for those of you who don't know, we used to do a podcast called Fallacy Football, where we did a sketch show of football, and the Hotel Benidorm was one of those things. I was trying to think of the English cricket equivalent of Alan Kirbishley, and that is a really difficult thing to do.
Chris Silverwood.
I think you can't
Duncan Fletcher
back to spoons.
Get Duncan Fletcher in.
Yeah, I quite like the Jonathan Trott suggestion.
I'm coming round to Mike Hussey because England's squad is old and he's won everything with CSK. It's perfect. It fits like a glove.
Yeah, and
you could get another 10 years out of some of those players.
I believe not disgracing himself at Welsh Fire, which is pretty good going, bearing in mind the history of Welsh Fire.
But you can't, surely you can't.
Well, you know, they've won 2 out of 7 matches, so
that's a big improvement.
So surely, though, you're not basing it upon the 100, right? So the ECB, the 100 was also always supposed to be right. We're saying England up on a good footing. Like, none of the coaches have been English really on it. They haven't exactly put a pathway in place, have they, for this eventuality?
Flintoff.
Yeah, but he's only been installed this season. It's been going for 4 years, and literally like one English coach and the whole thing. It just like not really thought it through. I genuinely think from a best person for the job, they can be obviously from anywhere. Mike Hussey's did a decent job, but I do think that England will want somebody who's worn the shirt. I think Jonathan Trott will probably end up being the person who they entrust with it.
Okay, I know James Foster is very
that.
well regarded as a coach. He would be the person I would go for, but maybe a bit too left field. Trott obviously has done very well with Afghanistan, a completely different team who have to play a completely different style of cricket to be effective, by the way. But they have. I don't think there's any doubt about it. They have overperformed with Jonathan Trott, and
it's a completely different style, but it's like he's getting the most out of what he has available. And you know, maybe he's really good at getting a team to play the style that Afghanistan are playing, or maybe he's really good at getting the best out of his players and finding the right way to play with what he's got at his disposal. So.
Maybe he's just a natural winner. I mean, we'll keep bringing up Gulbuddin Naib for as long as this podcast continues, I think. But that, as a moment in coaching, like often you kind of look at coaches in cricket, you think you're not doing anything. There's no tactics here. Like this is, that couldn't have been more obvious that he was having an impact on the players. He actually was getting involved there. Like as Ross is miming on camera. He
that's not good content for the podcast. Head over to YouTube.
I think that brings England to a close. Should we take a quick break and then we'll come back? We've got some 100 bits. James Anderson, franchise star.
I've got one more question on William Hill. What are the odds on Gareth Southgate being appointed? Because do you remember when the rugby team put Clive Woodward? They won it with Clive Woodward, and then for some reason Southampton decided to bring him in as director of football. Do you remember that? Is there really going to be any crossover? Any crossover from Gareth Southgate being a natural born winner? Just saying.
Southgate. If you were going to go for a football manager, Phil Neville was apparently very good at cricket. He's done the England women's international football team, and into Miami.
Success, but
also
success. Yeah. Maybe cricket's his true calling, Max.
Maybe. It would be interesting.
I would like to see more sport crossovers. If I'm perfectly honest, I would like to see more of them.
PT, maybe he could teach the bowlers a sort of a similar arm movement, isn't it, as swimming?
Is there a new reality series? Step aside, wife swap.
I generally thought you were referring to Peter Trago there when you said PT, not the swimmer.
No. Who else won some gold medals? Anyone?
Hodgkinson, the runner.
Yes, there you go. You could improve the running between the wickets.
Yeah, Johnny Bairstow. That's how he gets back in the England team. White ball coach. Anyway, we're digressing.
Let's take a break. Let's take a break.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cricket Podcast, where it's time to enter kind of silly season. We've talked about the England Test team. We've talked about Matthew Mott. Now we're on to any other business in cricket. I mean, I say any other business. Let's start by giving the 100 a run over, shall we? And I can update you on the situation that we're in with one game to play. I guess they'll be taking place over the next few days, so keep your eyes peeled. In the women's comp, it's a little bit of a bum fight at the top of the table. Welsh Fire look like they're going to make it through. London Spirit won today, so they're on 9 points. Oval Invincibles also on 9 points. Northern Superchargers cannot make it, having played their last game today and not won, I believe. They're only on 8 points. Trent Rockets could leapfrog themselves into the action. And then on the men's side, it's sort of all to play for again. Oval Invincibles, the men's version, they're through to the next round. Southern Brave and Birmingham Phoenix currently in the playoffs, but Northern Superchargers, Flintoff's men, could pull something out the bag and catch up there. They're playing London Spirit in a minute, but the start has been delayed because of rain. So I don't think it's necessarily worth doing a deep dive on that. Ross, you didn't get to talk about the 100 much on last week's pod. Have you enjoyed it this year? What are your calls for the playoff teams? Are you looking forward to the final? 100 in general.
Yeah, I do like the 100 because I get to bring new people to the cricket, which is always nice. So I've been to at least one game a week, and I've brought some new people to the game, and they've always had a good time. I'm at the 100 final on Sunday at Lords, which would be cool. And I was there on Sunday. Max, I believe you were there on Sunday as well.
Yeah.
It's fair to say London Spirit are an absolutely shocking franchise, and I'm shocked that they are second in the women's. They were absolutely garbage on Sunday in both. They got absolutely hammered by Oval Invincibles, and it was to the point where it was just quite embarrassing, really. But that happens in every kind of thing, even on our cricket, on I Don't Like Cricket Club on Saturday, which was even more embarrassing somehow than London Spirit's performances. But
nobody came to watch us play, did they? So you got that going for us.
So what one man's child did, and he was disappointed. So I think overall, the quality's been a little bit down this year. I think some of the players don't have some of the recognition that they've had. Like we've had Sunil Narayan rocking out before, and he's nowhere to be seen. Rashid Khan has now been ruled out this week. He says he's injured, but it could just be being disgraced by Kieran Pollard, smashing 5 sixes of his over and running scared. I think in terms of the people who are going to end up getting through, I think we'll see. Yeah, Welsh Fire will go through in the women's. If London Spirit go through, then fair enough. Like to that point, really. But I'd quite like to see the Trent Rockets go through, and then Oval Invincibles with them. So hopefully we'll see that. Is it the top 3 that go through in this, or is it the top 4?
It is the 3. Yeah, it's top 3.
It's
And it's like a semi-final, final day after each other.
Yes. So I think just to confirm, so Welsh Fire, Oval Invincibles, and Trent Rockets is the ones I would want to see go through. Not saying that's going to happen. That's what I'd want to see. And then from a men's perspective, like Oval Invincibles, Max, the Surrey surrogate, they've always been good, and Southern Brave have always been good since the start. So it's not surprising then. And then as we're Dan Western fans, like you've got to back Birmingham Phoenix, haven't we? In fact, look what I've got. 1 second.
Okay. Well, while he's talking about that,
Feels
Max,
weird,
you've been to quite a few games this season.
Yep.
Which players have taken your eye? Who has been the best at cricket?
Well, quite obviously, Sam Curran has been dominating everyone. He's had an incredible year, as Ross has just popped up to show us a signed Birmingham Phoenix top. So that is very nice and well worth getting out. It's been. It's been nice to see James Vince do well. Actually, the man who likes to dominate county cricket. Very much dominating county cricket. And then, the other big performer from, again, an Oval point of view, Adam Zampa has been absolutely ridiculous this year with the ball. He's just been a wicket machine, and yeah, showing that I think there's a few people that are just kind of a level above.
He's got a bit of an aura about him.
Of the 100. Yeah,
he does. People are scared of Adam Zampa.
There's something about the hairbands going on, isn't there? And all the shaggy locks in the 100 at the moment. But yeah, I think it's kind of showing just a little bit of a difference between those guys who are international level, or even just like knocking on the door at international level, and then everyone else. I think there's been a bit more of a mismatch this year, perhaps, than otherwise. And the other big thing that people have been making quite a lot of noise about is the ball and the pitches. There's been a lot more swing for a lot longer this year. I mean, there's been more than one occasion where like there's been 10 dot balls in a row at the start of an innings. And there's been quite a lot of low scores, some of which have been defended. So, chat about some slightly used pitches. So as a spectacle, it's not had the explosiveness perhaps that, some competitions have had in years gone by. So yeah, there's something about it this year that's a bit off, I think. But we spoke about all of that last week. And
have you seen what the rumor is? RE the ball doing too much.
So I saw someone saying something about they were blaming the 100 logo.
Yes, the logo is
and
too
the extra
big.
lacquer.
Yeah, and to get the logo on, they've had to lacquer the ball up too much, and that means that it's, I don't know, too hard, swinging too much, and
Does
nobody
it really
can.
matter
And
to
it
have
has.
the logo on the ball?
I don't know.
need to know.
Normally, you just use a bog standard Kookaburra white ball, like they do in the
Yeah.
Blast. I saw the run rate in the power play this year is like 2 runs lower and over,
That's so
which
so
is
significant.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
Dan
massive. Yeah,
Worrell's bowling with an economy rate of 5.2.
yeah.
Dan, I've got a problem
he's
with
had
Dan Worrell. Dan Worrell
Yeah.
was wearing his full kit to warm up in. That was weird. It's
Oh,
rare.
he's
to see-
like someone who gets out of his car in full whites for a game of
that is
cricket.
exactly
Like that.
that's exactly the vibe. Dan Worrell
Yeah.
is a full white wearer. That's what he is.
Yeah. So yeah,
Say that, Dan.
the pitches have been. I've seen so much T20 cricket on bad pitches this year, man. For a variety of reasons, I'm starting to get a bit bored of just another low-scoring T20 cricket match. It's not even T20. 200 runs aside. That's what we want. Ball going out the stadium. I want to see the ball go in the River Thames. Someone hit it that far. I don't want to see Dan Worrell bowling maidens. Ridiculous. Pollard hitting 5 sixes. That's what I want to do. That was incredible, Ross, wasn't it?
It was. And Rashid Khan is no mug, right? He's literally one of the premier.
Rashid
spinners.
Khan, no mug.
One way of describing it.
And yeah, absolutely obliterated by Kieran Pollard, who was, let's be fair, got almost like semi-retired by Mumbai Indians, not kind of from last year, and he's proven that he's still got it. Based upon some of Mumbai Indians' performances in the last 2 years, probably could have kept him around and done a job for them. So it was pretty good to see, if I'm perfectly honest. And when you've got Pom Bears written across you as you're absolutely destroying everything, it's a pretty cool spectacle.
Few other stories. James Anderson, he is contemplating becoming a franchise star, Max. He has seen the ball moving around, and I think probably quite correctly thought to himself, or declared publicly, I could do that, and wants to throw himself into the arena. If you were CEO of a franchise comp somewhere in the southern hemisphere, or at least the hemisphere of Earth where you can play cricket, not during the English summer, because I understand that some of the places are actually northern hemisphere, would you consider picking up James Anderson?
Borderline falling into the time zone trap there.
That's like a university challenge question there.
Yeah.
It's like wrapped up in all sorts of nonsense, and really all you're asking is like, who's a famous composer? Well, I think it's very obvious, isn't it? James Anderson, he's 42. There's only one franchise in world cricket that James Anderson belongs at, and it's my yellow boys, CSK. I think that he's the perfect fit, and there's more than just age to that, because as James Anderson pointed out, if the ball is swinging, beauty, absolutely. If the ball is swinging about, then James Anderson probably would be quite a handful in T20 cricket. I don't know what his variations are like. We haven't seen him play white ball cricket for quite a long time. I think it was 2014, the last time he played a blast game. So a good decade. He wasn't in his prime then, though, was he? So we'll see what he's developed. But yeah, I mean, to be useful, can you reliably pick someone up who's going to bowl basically 2 overs up front? I mean, I suppose Trent Bolt still gets bowled at the death and it goes horribly. So maybe
I think it's a bit disrespectful to Trent Bolt. I think Trent Bolt's a pretty bloody good white ball bowler, Max.
he's not great at the death, is he?
I'm more comparing with Tim
I don't-
Southey. I see Jimmy Anderson.
Yeah, well, maybe Tim
Southey
Southey can kind of bat a bit. That's the other thing. Jimmy Anderson is
reverse sweeps.
Absolutely, going to get you absolutely nowhere with the bat. So I wonder, maybe a competition where there's an impact sub could work.
I think if Kane Williamson gets a gig, then
Jimmy Anderson gets a gig.
I would rather have Anderson than Kane Williamson, and it wouldn't even be close. Like, I think it would be a slightly weird selection to pick up James Anderson, but there's sort of upside there, isn't there? Like, you do know he should be okay with the new ball, and if he's happy to do it for not that much bunts, or at least not that much declared bunts, then why not giving him a go? I'm not saying IPL here, but virtually anyone can play in the SA20. I mean, everyone's like, "Oh, the SA20 second best tournament." Is it? Like, it probably is, but they're still kind of just looking for players all the time by the list of declared signings. It doesn't scream only the elite get to play here.
I mean, if he wants money, then he can just pop over to the ILT.
Then you've got the ILT20, where they need anyone that will turn up.
Major League Cricket has got a Jimmy Anderson role.
Yeah.
Major League Cricket, why not? Especially those leagues where you can have as many overseas players as you want.
Yeah.
There are plenty
of teams that would have him, and he would get paid quite handsomely for it as well.
Is it good for cricket? Is it like a good thing? Like, does it tell us anything? Does it actually make me think, oh, that's a competitive league if James Anderson gets picked up? No, not really. But
what happens when he turns up and the ball doesn't swing, and then literally he gets absolutely decimated?
Well, he probably won't. Like, he just bowls. He bowls a good length all the time, and it will seam around a little bit. Like, I don't see that it would go that badly wrong. I think
him and Stuart Broad entering the IPL mega auction is a good thing on the bingo card.
As pointed out, he hasn't got that many variations, at least in terms of white ball bowling. I mean, he's got all the variations in terms of red ball bowling, but bowling 3 overs up front. But I don't see that there's a huge amount of downside.
If he played for 100,
probably work okay.
If he played for 100 franchises,
he'd be fine.
Actually, drum up as much interest in people going to watch that 100 franchises.
100%, yeah,
big time. He's a massive name,
and I don't think he'd be bad either.
I reckon he's like Bhuvi
Kumar in
Kumar.
the world.
He's like Bhuvi Kumar.
Probably
just less injury prone.
I mean, it's not a completely ridiculous comparison. Like, I think obviously Bhuvneshwar Kumar is a better bowler in white ball cricket than James Anderson,
because he does it.
it's not like Bhuvi's bowling balls out the back of his hand all the time or sending down knuckleballs left, right, and centre. No, he basically hits a good length somewhere around off stump and can swing the ball both ways and get it to nip about. And when it does, it takes loads of wickets. I think it's an experiment worth watching.
I want to see it. I'm fully in favour.
It completely relegates whichever competition he joins to friendly status. I mean, they're all friendlies anyway. Basically, it's the whole thing is just a giant circuit of friendlies. Sorry to shatter that illusion for anyone watching, and it's fine to just watch loads of friendlies. That's it's cricket, isn't it? We all enjoy it, but you're just watching loads of friendlies put on mainly so that people can bet on them, and people with absolutely nothing to do can watch and they can rake in some TV money. But they're not serious sporting competitions, are they? Picking James Anderson, it doesn't improve the brand image from that point of view, but it is freaky. It would be a weird thing to do, and I'm there for that. Anything else on James Anderson? Okay, we've got 3 more.
Long live James Anderson.
We've got 3 more stories. England and Scotland combining forces at LA 28 for the Olympics. Ross, are you excited about that?
I had no idea that was happening. That is exciting.
Well, we don't know if it is, but it's a
okay,
rumour.
fine.
Matt Roller wrote an article on it.
Well, I've seen that we might be doing that in the football as well. Team GB might be coming out again. But it would be nice to see Mark Watt play with England players. Like he's currently carrying the drinks for Oval Invincibles. But yeah, I think there's some decent Scottish players who would, I think, get an opportunity to play in that team. Actually, from a limited overs perspective.
Yeah, we've got Catherine Bryce in the women's game and McMullen.
George Munsey with all his sweeps.
Yeah, we could just say the Scotland team. I mean, like it's in the middle of the English summer. Presumably, some of the English players will be busy. Maybe they're a bit less busy. The Scotland team, said them.
Jimmy Anderson, 2024.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
That's what we need. That's what we
46
need.
That would be
Jimmy
good.
Anderson
That would be good.
with the big flag at the front.
Max, West Indies played South Africa. It rained a lot. Did we learn anything in a test match?
Not really. West Indies looked like they were putting up a good fight and then collapsed on themselves with some calamitous running, and then it rained and stopped South Africa from winning. They gave it a good go, but Athenaeus put up enough of a fight, didn't he, to see the West Indies over the line for a draw in the end. I think it's sort of reconfirmed a lot of what we saw with West Indies in the England series. I think there's signs that Athenaeus and Hodge have got a bit about them, and they have enough moments, but they're not good enough all around to put a proper performance together against a better side like South Africa or England. But the green shoots of recovery are there for the West Indies.
Yeah, we saw another 90 for Athenaeus. Timber Bavuma scored a few runs. Tristan Stubbs batting at 3 for South Africa.
That's quite interesting, isn't it?
That raised a couple of eyebrows. Got 68 off 50 balls in the second innings to try and set up the win. So made a couple. Maybe they're going to go down a Bazball route. Stubbs ball. It's kind of. I mean, the South African batting lineup: Markram, Stubbs, Bavuma. Maybe not so much Bavuma, but he likes playing his shots.
He plays T20 cricket.
Yeah, he does sometimes play T20 cricket. Rickleton was in there as well. Does Beddingham have much of a record in T20s? I don't think as much. No, but there's maybe they're going to go down a sexy brand of cricket after the Dean Elgar years. And finally, Max, you were the one that brought this to my attention, so you're going to have to summarise what happened. Shakib Al Hasan refusing to play cricket in the GT20.
Yeah, absolutely hilarious story, this one. So, Shakib Al Hasan, basically, it was the eliminator game, wasn't it, in the GT20, and it rained all day. So there was the first game was rained off. And it ended up with basically the team with the best record going through to the final. And then it came to the second game, and because that was later in the day, they just had enough time to squeeze in a super over to have a 1-over eliminator. But it was the Bangla Tigers, Shakib's team, then kicked up a bit of a fuss because they thought that the game should have been called off like the first one, because they came top in the group. They would have gone through to the qualifier 2 the next. I think it's the same like IPL style thing. So you've got qualifier 1, qualifier 2, eliminator thingy, and they thought the game should be cancelled. Apparently the conditions of play were always that there was going to be a super over. So I'm not sure why Shakib decided that they thought they didn't have to play it, but he didn't turn up for the toss, so they awarded the game to the opposition, and then the Bangla Tigers actually turned up the next morning for qualifier 2, expecting that they would be able to change the umpires' minds and play the game, which obviously didn't happen. So they were knocked out just because Shakib's a bit of a tosser, or rather, not a tosser in this case.
It's such a weird story, isn't it, Ross? I mean, like, this tournament in general has been weird. Games abandoned because of a dangerous pitch, a fair amount of rain. involved as well. And now in the crunch match, this happens. What are your thoughts?
It needs some proper leadership. You can't give people like Shakib Al Hasan any leeway whatsoever. They're literally like he's a petulant child. And so I think when it comes to this kind of stuff, you need to be at least have some people who can like lay down the law. And it feels like in a lot of cases on things like this, you just don't have that. Player power is far too strong, and it just becomes a bit of a joke. So you talked earlier about things just being kind of glorified friendly matches. Kind of this one, like, who cares it is even happening? Like it's just pretty damning, if I'm perfectly honest. And when you've got boards not giving players kind of the kind of permission to go and play after they've been announced as their marquee signings, it just makes it all a bit of a joke. So this has been a pretty bad stain, I would say, on the reputation of the GT20. And they need to be really careful around some of the people that they end up getting into the teams.
Shakib Al Hasan as captain, leader, legend. It was bound to go wrong.
Let's give this. So, who should we trust?
Why didn't he want to play? This is super over. Like, what did he think that they just should get the point? It was in the rules that the Super Over would decide. They didn't just make it up on the spot. Like,
No, it was
to
in the
be
rules
fair to the
from the
GT20 in this, they didn't panic at the last minute. They were like, we're going to have Super Overs if we can get them in. And
maybe they thought it was too wet to actually play the Super Over, but I don't think that is the case. I think they basically just thought that doing a Super Over to decide it wasn't fair. But like in days gone by, they'd have just done a coin toss. So at least there's something. At least there's some cricket. Yeah, it's quite perplexing. It's quite funny though. I do quite like. I mean, I wouldn't say I have respect for it, but I have a lot of time for all of the hijinks and nonsense that we get out of Shakib Al Hasan as a cricketer. It's good content.
It kind of feels like this. It's just like, oh, who should we trust with the gasoline and the matches? Oh, let's give it to the arsonist. Like it's just a bit stupid. So never mind.
Right, I think that's it for TCP for this week. We will be back next week with a preview of England v Sri Lanka as Test cricket returns for one last dance in England in 2024.